I have a young friend that is coming up in the industry, and his name is Cody Pierce, and he is in Fort Myers. And he is kind of, reaches out to me and as well as couple other professionals that he knows, and he kind of does, but it's a grind. Everything's a grind. It's find your niche. I think that's important with any guide. Find your niche, whatever that is, and go from there.
Hello, I'm Will Taylor, and this is Tom Rowland's podcast.
So, on my story, there's an opportunity to ask questions, and I got a ton of them, and we're going to use Will Taylor also as somebody that can help answer some questions. So, Will, what have you been up to?
Weathering the storm since we met. It's been great for us, and just trying to figure out how to manage the influx of individuals that want to fish with us.
And you're balancing that with also
a 16-month-old baby girl and a wife and two other businesses and a million other things.
Right. So what is that like for you?
It's very difficult. I had to me and my wife had to sit down and develop a structure, come up with a structure for our lives, and I think we figured it out. So we'll see how it goes. It's something that we're learning, and I think you have to adapt with growth with everything, and that's what we're doing. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like anything, and I come to you and ask for friendship advice and mentor advice and everything. So it's
well. So as far as what are you finding the most difficult thing is about having the extra person that now lives in your house?
Not knowing when to quit working.
Yeah, that is a super fine line.
It is, and being self-employed, you never really clock out. I don't know if that's a thing, but you're always working. You're always doing something. You're always, and then of course I have my seasons with fishing, so I have to manage that as well. And being away from my family has been the hardest part about fall season. And I've never been away from my family at all, really.
Yeah.
So being away from them for this season has been a learning curve. But we're making it. We're doing great.
I just got really smart here and decided I was going to take a picture of these questions. But anyway. So I asked some questions on, or I gave people an opportunity to ask questions, and we're just going to go through these. So the Ranger Angler, if you had to choose one fish to catch for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It's a tie between big snook and brown trout.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going permit.
You're always a permit, though.
Permit, bonefish, or tarpon, and between the three.
If you weren't in the Keys, what would it be?
I like trout, and of the trout species, probably I got a soft spot in my heart for cutthroats, except that they live in places where it gets super cold. So I don't want to isolate myself there. I already tried to spend the winter in Wyoming and I ended up in Key West. So I don't want to spend the winter in Wyoming. So I'd have to say rainbow trout. Rainbow trout are available all over the world.
They are.
You can fish for them year-round. You can fish for them in warmer locales. So if it wasn't permit and I had to choose a freshwater species, I think it would be rainbow trout. All right, that was a good question. So one artificial bait to use for the rest of your life. Everybody's into the rest of your life. Old Two Chins over here wants to know, only one artificial bait to use for the rest of your life. What bait do you choose?
Are we going fly or are we going conventional?
It's an artificial bait.
Jesus. Just one?
Just one for the rest of your life.
You're going to have to break that up in categories. It's got to be either fly or conventional.
Okay, one fly.
One fly, all over the world. I don't know.
I know what it is for me.
Classic booger?
The woolly booger. That's what I was going to say. Because you could catch anything.
Anything.
You could alter it a little bit and make it a little different, and you could probably catch just about anything on a woolly booger. So a woolly booger would be the fly, and then for the bait,
either a soft white plastic or a spoon.
Yeah, those are both good choices. What I would choose is a traditional bass tube. And a lot of people don't fish those anymore. But in my opinion, that is the most versatile soft plastic because you can rig a tube completely weedless. You can rig a tube on a jig head, or you can rig a tube like they fish them wacky and they fish them just head hooked, and you can jerk that along like a jerk bait. You can make it fall and look like a shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
You can make it look like a crawfish.
Mm-hmm.
You can basically, it's like the woolly booger of, I'm going to say kind of like a brownish kind of Coca-Cola color.
That works. Tube
White.
it is then. So I know to go fishing with you. I'm just bringing tubes.
Well, when we fish the redfish tournaments, man, we fish those tubes all the time. It's just one of those things that you could fish in just so many different ways, and you could rig it so many different ways that it becomes the most versatile soft plastic, I think. And so you can fish it where there's weeds. You can fish it where there's, whatever. Saltwater, freshwater, redfish, bass, trout, everything eats a tube. Favorite post-fishing libation? Boy, this is more in your wheelhouse than it is in mine.
It depends. It's tacos for me, man.
Tacos?
Yeah.
God, you and the tacos. You were all about tacos the last time we did a podcast.
You
weren't kidding.
It's South Texas, man. Heart's in South Texas. It's just the way I told you.
That's really, you would
my
rather
wife gives me a
have
hard
that
time. Then what? What else is there?
Than like some kind of one of those beers where you have to wear skinny jeans and a
I don't
flannel
need-
shirt
I don't
to
need-
drink it?
I don't need, no. I mean, I don't need to chug a beer to feel good about myself. I tell you what, though. A pork taco would be real good.
A pork
Carnegie
taco?
salad.
Okay.
Barbacoa.
I'm going to say 100 burpees.
100 burgers. You're an animal. You're an animal. What time is that? Is that like is this is right after you?
I don't know, man. I just
So I'm eating.
I don't drink.
I don't really drink either. No, I really don't. It's just one of those things where I don't know. You just don't.
You don't drink much, or you
No.
don't drink at all?
Don't really drink at
I
all.
don't drink at all.
I don't drink at all.
Turner Rowland 1 says, big gulp, huh?
Oh, yeah?
So do you know where that comes from?
I do. That's funny.
It's Dumb and Dumber.
It is. It is.
He walks out and he goes, big gulp, huh?
Big old, huh?
Well, see you later. So it's always nice to hear from your son. Best flamingo rod and reel for snook and snapper.
That's
You
your
probably-
wheelhouse, buddy.
I would say
You're a big one-piece guy?
Are we talking fly rod or spinning rod?
Well,
So
let's
I'm
cover
going to
both.
go with a spinning rod first, and I'm going to choose either a St. Croix Mojo, which is a little softer and a little bit slower rod, or one of the Extreme Inshore series, which is the white one with the little different looking handle. That
Which is
one's
a new
super
handle.
fast.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was an angler that liked super fast, and if I was an angler that liked to cast up under the mangroves, that's when I would like a super fast rod. If I wanted
6'6",
something, no, I'm a 7-foot guy.
Are you?
I like 7 feet, and I do not particularly like 7'6", especially if I'm going to be throwing under the bushes and skipping under the bushes. So I'm going to go with a 7-foot, either Mojo or Legend Inshore, and that's the St. Croix, and then I'm going to put a Daiwa Saltus 3000 on it. That's what I'm like, and then 15-pound braid and a fluorocarbon leader, and then for a fly rod, I'm going to say a 9-foot 9-weight. Sometimes that's going to be a little light for some of the snook fishing. Sometimes it might be a little heavy for others, but that's your kind of go-to, I think. With a floating line. What do you think about
one piece,
that?
4-piece?
To me, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
St. Croix has this interesting rod now, the Soul, and it's a 2-piece, kinda. It's 7 feet long, and then the tip comes off. So it's kind of cool because the 7-foot rod, you can hold it and carry it with all your spinning rods and not break the tip off, right? So
you're a conventional guy.
yeah, like if you got a handful of spinning rods and you got a 9-foot fly rod, you're just looking to break the fly rod,
just looking to break it.
And if you got just like when that's why that particularly, I think that's why I don't like the 7.5-foot spinning rod, because most of my rods are 7 feet, and then I go to cram them in the truck and I break the tip on the 7.5-footer. But I think that's kind of interesting. That new rod that they have, it comes with 2 tips.
Oh, that's right. You fish that.
What's your biggest sea trout? Do you catch sea trout?
I did in Texas. I lived in
That's where they're big.
I lived on Copano Bay for many years in Lamar, Texas, which is outside of Rockport, Texas.
Yeah.
And we have some pretty decent little gator trout from time to time. At the time, I wasn't heavily fly fishing for them, but yeah, just like anything else, jigs and soft plastics and shrimp and under poppers and, whatever else. And my biggest, probably 28 and a half, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big, but they're big out there, man.
Yeah.
They're not.
That's the thing in Texas. It's funny how as you move from places in Florida to Louisiana over to Texas, it's funny how regionally the anglers are way into trout or not at all into trout and way into redfish or not at all into redfish. But the trout fishermen, I mean, when I think of trout, I think of Texas.
Yep.
That's where although there's some great trout fishing in Florida. Me,
I've never caught any big trout in Florida, but maybe that's just because I haven't,
I've never caught a big trout.
Really?
Period. In fact, my freshwater trout are bigger than any saltwater trout that I've caught. I really just have never been on a really good sea trout trip. And certainly Key West is not the best place for that. All right. What's the best bait for targeting bridge tarpon in November? That's an easy answer. It's going to be a well full of pilchards, for sure. And lucky for you, the cold front just brought a bunch of pilchards onto the ocean side of the Florida Keys. So if you see birds diving, probably pretty good chance. But then you take that well full of pilchards over to the bridge, anchor up, and start throwing them out. And if the tarpon are there, you're going to see them really quick. I'm sure you could probably catch them on mullet and stuff like that. But also in November, typically the size of the tarpon goes way down. So if you're using a pretty full size mullet, you might not have every tarpon in the area coming up for it. So I think the pilchards are better. You want to come to Sebastian and fish with me? Yeah, I would. I know a lot about Sebastian Inlet only in hearing it from my friend who tells me that Sebastian Inlet is just an amazing place to fish. So yeah, I'd like to do that. That'd be cool. Have you ever fished in New Jersey? I haven't.
I have not.
So Osprey 75.
Yeah, I bet that's interesting.
Yeah, haven't fished in New Jersey, but I think that there's some good striped bass fishing there, and that'd be pretty cool. Would you be interested in speaking at a UCF Real Knights Club meeting? Sure, absolutely. Shoot me an email, and let's see if we can get that together. You can email podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. So do you still guide? If so, what's your favorite fishing to do with clients? So I don't really guide anymore. I have to, it's pretty much a full-time job just to do the show and everything. But I do like catching permit the best. And what about you, Will? Do you still guide?
I still guide. My wife gives me 100 days a year, and that's it.
And so what's your favorite fish?
Favorite fish to guide?
Yeah.
Browns, man.
I thought it was tiger trout.
They're far and few between, but browns are, it's just one of those universal fish that everybody can relate to, and that everybody has a passion for them, even though they've never even caught one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know there is a good question on here for you. I saw it earlier.
I got a question over here.
Oh, you do? What is it?
Let's see. We said from J. Deet Money. Yes, I don't know. The third, J. Dietmon the third.
Okay.
Found a big school of reds, crushing bait on a super low tide this weekend at Goodland. Threw everything we had at them, and they wouldn't eat. I guess we needed a fly rod, or you needed Tom Rowland on your boat.
No, well, I don't. That's interesting that you found a school crushing bait and they wouldn't eat what you were throwing because they're obviously eating something. So my first thought would be that whatever you had was either bigger or smaller than what they were looking for, that they were eating something different because they're obviously eating. I've had a lot of problem with redfish in Florida that you find them and they're not eating anything, and they're not eating anything that we're throwing either, especially in that Fort Myers area. Whew. Boy, those fish, they can be harder to catch than any permit in the Keys. They can be really, really, really incredibly hard to catch. But I don't know, man. I guess the trick would be just keep trying some different type things. where is that article? Or where is that thing? Here's one from Sportfisher, who I know very well. And I'm really laughing hard at this question because Sportfisher is John Landry, and John Landry is a very good guide now in Alaska and spent some time in Florida. Sportfisher, SPORTFISH. Should follow him on Instagram. He's got a great Instagram. And when he came fishing with me, his dad was somebody that gave everybody kind of a hard time, but he inspired us to have a little competition together. And we were going to have a pancake eating contest. And John was a young man at the time, so I felt pretty confident that I could eat more pancakes than him. And I don't know if I could now, but we never actually got to have the pancake eating contest. And here, 20 years later, he asked me this thing that didn't exist then. How many pancakes can you eat?
How many can you eat?
One more than he can.
That's all you need.
One more than he can. I want to get John to tell me how many he can eat first, and then it's going to be one more. Are you going to go hunting with deer meat? Man, I want to go hunting with deer meat. I've really enjoyed having a podcast with him. He's a really good guy, and I want to do the gator hunt. We talked about doing a gator hunt.
Go.
Definitely want to do that because that gator meat looks pretty tasty.
You ever caught a gator on top water?
No. Well, yeah, I haven't actually caught it. I hooked one.
Right.
And luckily it got off. I wanted it to get off because once it ate, I didn't really want it on there anymore. But somebody once told me that their trick is like their nose sticks out like this and the end of their nose comes up, and then usually there's a little dip right here, and then here are their eyes like this. And if you can pass the fly across this area, they'll eat it every time. Every time.
Or
right?
your fish every time.
Or whatever comes across this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put it right out in front. They don't always eat it. But if you cross between their eyes and their nose, they eat it every time. And so I was like, I wonder if that's true. And I threw over there, and it's true.
It's true.
It was for that one.
You lose a $5 fly pretty quick.
Yeah. $5 fly. You could lose
$4.25.
your arm. How do I get swole?
Well, 5 a.m. workouts. I like that question. That question's great.
Yeah. It's one of my friends, my son's friends. You want to get swole? You work out a lot and you eat twice as much and you sleep more than you think you should.
When you're 20.
Anytime, really.
That's true.
So, there's some training questions. How do you
get swole, man? How do you get swole?
You work out.
Are you a BSN athlete?
I don't know. What is that?
It's some supplemental company.
Whole food athlete.
That's all that matters. Your breakfast was ridiculous at Whole Foods one morning. I got to tell that story real quick. So I offered to buy you breakfast. Remember that?
Oh.
And you were like, no, man.
You're not the first one to fall for that trick.
No, you don't want to buy me breakfast. And I was like, no, I'll buy you breakfast. And like $27 later, you're like, you don't need to buy me breakfast.
Yeah, man, I told you. Somebody else did that one time, and it was $30.
Like, how many eggs do you have? I know. I don't know. Still, though.
Must have been in a bulking phase.
Gains.
So how do you get swole? You work out a lot and you eat a lot. That's how you get swole.
Eat a lot.
Why CrossFit instead of bodybuilding? That's a good question. So I don't know. I guess I did bodybuilding type workouts when I was younger and in high school and stuff like that. And then I find CrossFit to be really more interesting. You can compete with people right there with you or online or even things that they have done in the past. So like say there's a workout, a standard workout called Fran. Fran is 21 thrusters, which is where you have a bar. You go with 95 pounds, you go down into a full squat, you come up overhead, and you do that 21 times, and then you do 21 pull-ups. Then you do 15 of those, and then 15 pull-ups, and then 9 of those, and 9 pull-ups. So if you have a pull-up bar and a 95-pound barbell, you can do that workout. And if you have a clock, you can determine exactly how long that takes you. So whether you did that 10 years ago or whether you did that in Afghanistan or whether you did it in your backyard, you can kind of compete with people. That's what drew me to CrossFit, was that you could not only compete with other people, but you could compete with yourself, and you could do these little checks of these workouts, and you could make sure that you were staying in as good a shape as you once were, and it was measurable and repeatable, and I don't know, there was a little competition, and I really liked it. So I don't know, that I stuck with it a lot longer than I stuck with the bodybuilding type workout. So that's really what fitness is all about, is finding something that you like enough that you can stick with for a long time.
I got a question here.
Okay.
If you could do a podcast episode with anyone in the world, who would it be? Anyone.
If I could do a podcast with anyone in the world,
dead or alive,
man, I'd really like to do one with Tony Robbins. I would really like to do one with, I don't know, man. He'd be right there at the top. I'd like to do one with Conor McGregor.
Yeah, man. Let's set that up.
Set it up.
Let's set that up.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I think Tony Robbins would be an interesting person to talk to. I think, I don't know, maybe. It's hard to think about just one person that I would want to do something with. Now, speaking of working out, this guy, Peter Akins, asked, have you ever caught a giant bluefin tuna, and would you want to? So, if you want to talk about working out, that would be a workout. Like 1,000-pound bluefin tuna, that's a real fish. That is, in my opinion, maybe the most badass fish in the whole ocean. I haven't ever caught one. I wanted to. We had it set up. Well, I was going to go to that area. What's it called? It's the little island that they do all the bluefin tuna fishing. Gosh, somebody will tell us. Shoot, I can't remember. Nova Scotia area, and there's an island up there that's where they go. That's the bluefin tuna capital of the world. And man, I cannot believe I'm spacing it. Anyway, I had it set up, and we were going to go up there, and it just kind of fell apart. And we were going to go up there and do a show, and it just never really worked out. But I started training for it. I really did. I was thinking, okay, if I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to need to get stronger, and did a lot more squats, and was really thinking about, like, what's it going to take to land one of these fish? I mean, you could get one of these huge ones, and I think fitness would be a big determining factor of whether
Prince
or not
Edward Island.
Prince Edward Island.
There
Yes,
you go.
that's it.
Look at all
Thank you,
those guys.
Shadowcast Red Fly
And Robbie Lance or something, and everybody else.
Prince Edward, of course. And what, do you ever do that? You're probably not old enough yet, but my brain goes bad like that. Like something that I've said or heard or written thousands of times, you just can't remember it. Sometimes I think I'm having a stroke. But Prince Edward Island is one of those things where I know Prince Edward Island, and I can't believe I'm spacing it, but that's where we were supposed to go. And anyway, so yes, I would love to do it. I think that is one of the remaining dinosaurs on this planet, and I would love to see it. I don't even know if I need to catch one. I would love that whole thing where they're feeding them off the side of the boat, and you literally see a fish that is almost the size of that wall come up and eat, basically something the size of a mullet right next to the boat.
Jeez.
To me,
are you hand cranking that?
I guess. But to me, like the whole act of catching it and everything like that would be super cool. But if I could just get out on one of those boats and just see that whole hand feeding thing, that would be enough for me. I don't have to catch one, but I would love to experience that. Just like I would love to experience being on a boat that catches 1,000-pound marlin. I don't necessarily need to be the one cranking it myself, but I would love to see 1,000-pound marlin come flying out of the water. Mm-hmm. That would be incredible, and I haven't seen that either. But I'm talking, I mean, when you see those pictures of the back of that marlin that looks like it's like that wide, and it's just coming out, and it's got a giant tuna hanging out of its mouth, like a tarpon with a mullet hanging out of its mouth. I mean, that is an incredible fish, and I would love to see that. So I don't know. It's a funny question. Would you want to? Because I think that a lot of people want to catch one of those giant fish until they actually get hooked up to it. And then they're like, holy cow, how long is this going to take?
That was like me with swordfish.
Yeah.
It was great until we actually got on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would love to see one of those fish.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a really incredible thing they have going on at Prince Edward Island.
1,000 pounds is average size?
No, I think 1,000 pounds is possible.
What,
but I think when
average?
you saw one, you would think that's 1,000-pound fish.
Yeah.
And it might be a 300-pound fish. I don't know. I've never been there. I would like to go. I'd like to see it. I was kind of disappointed that the whole thing fell apart. Have you ever fished for rainbow trout in Tennessee? Have you?
I have.
You have?
I have. I'm not going to say where, but I have.
You're not going to say where?
No, you can't tell anybody where you fish.
I fished the Hiwassee River.
What
are you talking about?
I have a little place, a little something special that's right on the border.
Okay.
Right on the Georgia line. Yeah, it's kind of nice.
All right. Well, maybe you can take Jacob Blandon 11.
So Jacob Blandon, hit me up, buddy.
All right.
Jacob Blandon.
I follow 11. That guy.
I don't know who
and
that is.
Dude, he catches some fish.
Does he really?
Yeah, he does.
Is he in Tennessee?
Yes,
well,
I believe he is.
That's good stuff.
I follow him. He's one of the people that followed me, and I followed him back. All right. My friend JJ there. What's the diameter of your calves? Jesus. Are you serious? I don't know.
He's doing calf raises actually right now.
I got stopped in the airport. I was wearing shorts.
He can't wear skinny jeans, put it that way.
I can't wear skinny jeans, but I was wearing shorts. This is a true story. Wearing shorts, and I go through, take my shoes off, go through, and the dude, TSA agent, he looked like he trained. He looked like he was pretty strong.
He trained.
And he looked at me, and he looked down at my legs, and then he looked back up at me, and he goes,
"You must work out.
Turn around and look at that screen." And there were two yellow boxes right here. Like, this is where you're supposed to feel them, tap them down. But I was wearing shorts. And he goes, "Pretty sure it's just your calves, but I got to feel them anyway." I was like, okay. All right. So anyway, they're my calves. I don't know what the diameter of them is, but it's big enough to set off the thing at TSA.
Man size.
Yeah.
Man size calves.
Here's a good one. What's one piece of advice for an aspiring guide in Southwest Florida?
Ooh.
Do you have any? I know a lot of guides in Southwest Florida.
I spent a lot of time in Naples, actually. I actually call that home a lot of the year. And, I wouldn't be the one to ask, about an aspiring guy there other than...
Well, you have friends that are there.
We do.
Them get started.
I haven't seen... I've seen a lot of the guys are senior captains,
Yeah, but you see things where you see definitely the right way to do it versus the wrong way to do it.
Right. And I think... I have a young friend that is coming up in the industry, and his name is Cody Pierce, and he is in Fort Myers. And he is kind of, reaches out to me and as well as couple other professionals that he knows, and he kind of does, but it's a grind. Everything's a grind. It's find your niche. I think that's important with any guide. Find your niche, whatever that is, and go from there.
When you say find your niche, you mean like, do you like fishing for snook in shallow water, or do you like fly fishing, or do you like what is it that makes you a little bit different than other people?
Right. I mean, I've been on hardcore fly fishing guides' boats, and they have a spinning rod on the boat. There's no shame in targeting species in different ways, but have your niche. If you're the redfish guy, if you're the snook guy, if you're a big snook on fly guy, if you're an Everglades guy or Pine Island guy, whatever it is, find your niche and then be the best at your niche. It's or at least aspire to be the best.
Yeah.
Southwest Florida is a tough little place.
Yeah.
Our fishery is unique for sure, but a great fishery.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Naples is incredible. Everglades, Chokoloskee, Goodland. You got Pine Island there.
Lifetimes of exploring back there. Mm-hmm. And it's really, I guess my advice would be know your way around.
Catch bigger fish than everybody else.
Well, know your way around. Make sure wherever you go, you can get back to where you started.
I fish with guides that go head first in the Everglades with no electronics. But, at the same time, they've been doing it for 25, 30 years, and then, if they fall overboard, I'm screwed. But, but that's the type of skill set level that you're dealing with down there. The guys that's their water,
mm-hmm.
And if you're young, like anything thing. Respect your elders, respect your senior captains, and they'll embrace you, I think, more than they will fight you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being embraced by the community, especially if you're trying to be part of the community, is important.
Yeah. Well, I think on a technical aspect, that's certainly good advice. Technical aspect, you're in a place where the navigation is incredibly difficult, and just because you're an aspiring guide doesn't necessarily mean you don't know your way around. So I don't want to imply that you don't know your way around, but probably don't know your way around as well as some of these guys that you're talking about. So I think it's always good advice to make sure that you've got plenty of backup navigational things. Like, you should never be out there without a paper chart and a compass. You should never be out there relying only on your electronics, because what if your battery dies? Now, what if you have something go wrong? You should always, any prudent mariner has a paper chart and a compass somewhere in their boat. And just like you carry a flare kit, there should be a compass in there, and you should know your way around, because I don't know. I mean, I may not be talking to this guy that is an aspiring guide in Southwest Florida, but dude, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of getting totally turned around in the backcountry in an area that you're not familiar with, or even in an area that you are pretty familiar with, but for whatever reason, you got your head down in the live well and you look up and you've drifted off a little bit and you're like, where am I? And dude, you can get turned around so fast, especially back in that Hells Bay area or Chuckaluskee or any of that. All looks the same, and you won't be able to tell the difference between north and south. And having a compass and a paper chart is super duper important. Also, a method of communicating with somebody, because if you run aground or have a problem back there, big problem.
No cell phone service back there.
Yeah,
man.
So there are all these new little things. I saw this one thing, and it was about the size of a phone, and it was a satellite thing that would allow you to text.
Mm-hmm.
So you could send out, and I guess it was expensive to text. You're just going to send out a text to your wife or somebody that knows where you are. Maybe you only have one number connected to it or something, but there's some line of communication. That's super important back there, because I know some old Keys guides that had been going back into the Hells Bay area and all of that for a long time get lost.
Mm-hmm.
So it can happen to anybody. Anyway, so, work hard, be the first at the boat ramp and the last to leave, but make sure that you're able to get back to the dock. Jack Williams, 132. Here's somebody that knows a little bit about me. Who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Oh,
so there's two answers to this question.
There's always two answers.
Yeah. Because my favorite real wrestler of all time is Cale Sanderson.
Yeah, you got to pull somebody into my nose.
Yeah, well, yeah. Cale Sanderson went completely undefeated in college. Not only did he go undefeated, he wrestled in every match that he could possibly wrestle in. So that means he never was hurt, he was never sick, and he never missed a match, and he won them all.
Animal.
And
who
then
did he
went
go to college for?
He was at Iowa State.
Oh.
And then he went to the Olympics. And so he's also an Olympic wrestler. But
and then
Cale Sanderson, but then how do you pick between Cale Sanderson and Dan Gable? Like, boy, that's a really, really tough one. So I'm going to say it's a tie between Cale Sanderson and Dan Gable. Then the fake wrestler. Who's my favorite fake wrestler of all time? It's the Ultimate Warrior.
Same here.
There's no chance.
There's no debate.
It's the Ultimate Warrior. Absolutely. Or Superfly Snuka.
Superfly Snuka. That's funny.
I'm going to say
Warrior.
it's the Ultimate Warrior.
It's got to be Ultimate Warrior.
Okay, so Ultimate Warrior and Dan Gable. Okay, what motivates you? You go first. God, that stumped you.
I guess
it did. The simplest question. Yeah. It was 3 words.
I know what motivates. Well, I'm going to be the cliche young father and say my daughter motivates me, but everything motivates me. It's just life in general. If life doesn't motivate you, then change it. I mean, if you don't get up every day excited about your day, then figure it out, man. What motivates you?
Learning, really does. Learning about anything, fishing, hunting, fitness. I'm motivated by learning. And I'll tell you what else motivates me. I get motivated by other people's motivating stories. when I see somebody that overcomes something, whether it's an athletic performance or an illness or just a difficult situation, that's highly motivating for me. And somehow I can see somebody win the Olympics and then apply that in some way, shape, or form to my life or into fishing and be like, well, if they can do it, then so can I. Okay.
I got one here. One more question. Fishing unknown water, what is your go-to search bait? Do you even have a search bait?
Yeah. A well full of pilchards.
Well, you're...
You just start throwing them out everywhere.
You've been in the Keys
dude,
too long.
If they come up, then they're
there.
there.
They are. There they are.
Well, I mean, that is
it.
a good
That's
search
a good
bait.
answer. There's your search bait.
The search bait is going to be something that you could throw a long way so that you can cover a lot of water. And so there are some that are better than others. I like a jerk bait that allows me to rig it differently. I can rig it if it's a place where it's unknown water and you go there and there are weeds everywhere. Well, you can rig that jerk bait kind of weedless and you can move it along, and then you can kind of weight it so that it'll be mid water column, or you can kind of fish it on a jig head closer to the bottom, or you can fish it. A lot of the jerk baits are floating. I really like the ones that are like the Z-Man baits that float, and so you can either weight them and get them down to the bottom, or you can fish them mid column, or you can fish them on the surface. And typically, you can throw them a really, really long way and cover a lot of water. And so I would have to say that probably in white.
In white.
But also, I mean, depends on what you're fishing for. Like if it's a redfish search bait, I'm going gold spoon all day long.
All day.
But, if it's kind of, we might come across a big laid up tarpon in here, and there might also be some, other fish in here, trout, or we might be looking for jacks, or I don't know. We can pull up to a channel and it's like, man, we just want to bend the rod. The weather's not that good. I'm going jerk bait. And you might catch a tarpon on it. You might catch a sea trout on it.
There's your answer.
Know.
There's your answer, Jamie Eatman III.
You down for some hunting in South Texas for whitetails?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah. Show us where they're at.
That'd be really fun. I actually have never been to hunt in South Texas. I've been to South Texas. I like the area. I like that hill country area. I love the music there. I love the culture. Big Jerry Jeff Walker, Robert Earl Keen fan. Of course, Willie Nelson. You got that whole hill country, and that hill country is supposed to have some really awesome hunting, and it's also supposed to have some really incredible ranches, including the one that I went to that has all this exotic game on it. Mm-hmm. So I would love to go there and see the whitetail hunting, because I have seen the exotic game, and that's somehow not as exciting to me as maybe the whitetails would be, but it's cool to look at, and I love going there. And like my introduction to South Texas, I guess that's South Texas, right? The hill country?
I mean, kind of.
Lukenbach?
Yeah.
Okay, so my introduction to Lukenbach, whether or not that fits the definition of South Texas, was that I went to, my parents said, would you like to go on this trip with us? And I was a young man and I didn't have anything going on. And I was like, I don't know, go on a trip with your parents. It wasn't all that exciting to me, but they were like, oh, it'll be fun. You don't have anything going on. Might be fun. We're going to go visit some friends. And they say they have a pond and you can fish in it. And I said,
got double digits.
Sweet. I didn't say anything, but I took a handful of bass flies and a 9-foot 6-weight 4-piece rod with a floating line. And we get there and I'm like, where's the pond? And, well, first of all, we drove down a long, road, which I found out later was their driveway. I thought it was some kind of country road that went on forever. But, I've heard about people in that type of area where they fly to the mailbox in their own little plane and land and check the mail and then fly back to their house. Well, I realized why that is, because this person's driveway was about 15 miles long. And all through there, we're passing all this exotic game and everything. So anyway, we pull up to what I think is the house, and we're told that's the guest house. And then we pull up to another house, and it's much bigger. And this is the main house. And we get there, and they look like they're making some kind of circus tent out front. And so I asked where I might be able to go fishing. And they said, oh, well, you're going to want to get in the work truck and go over the hill. And I said, okay, well, where's the work truck? And they showed me a brand spanking new F-250 King Ranch. That's the work truck they just threw me the keys to. And so me and my dad get in that truck, and this is a long time ago. My dad had a camera with real film in it, and he had 2 pictures on the roll. And so we go over the hill, which is about another 15 miles, and we drop down, and there's a lake. But before we went, they said, nobody's caught anything in the lake. The weeds grew up. Nobody's caught anything in there. Y'all can go fish in there if you want, but nobody's caught anything there in months. So I was like, nobody's fished this thing in months. It's going to be pretty good.
It's going to be pretty good.
So we go over the hill. We get in this tiny little 2-man bass tracker with a trolling motor on it. You know, with my polarized glasses, I can see that the weeds are straight up to the surface of the water, but then there would be these little hollowed out places where it was little deeper. And so I was like, well, we can't get a fly through there. So let's just go over there, and I'll just throw across that hole, and I'd bring this little fly over the top, you know, like a deer hair, spun deer hair with some feathers off the back. Nothing fancy. It didn't even look like a minnow, not a frog.
Mm-hmm.
So I bring it from the weeds into that deeper area.
Destroy.
Kaboom! 5-pounder, biggest bass I'd ever caught. And so I'm like, take a picture, Dad, take a picture. And he takes a picture. He throws over there. He gets one. And I'm like, here, let me take a picture of it. He says, no, we better save this last picture. And I said, okay. And so he lets it go. I throw to the next one. We keep moving to these holes. There are holes all over the place. And it was so exciting because I could look out there and I was like, oh my God, I've got this whole pattern. And it's endless. As far as we can see, there are these little depression holes. And every one we went to, we'd catch 2 or 3 fish off of it.
Nice.
And I caught one that was about 8. And I was like, this is it. He goes, man, I think you ought to wait. So I let that one go.
Really?
And then I go down a little bit further and I throw over there. And sure enough, biggest bass I had ever caught until I met Graham Taylor. I caught a 9 1/4 pound largemouth on fly.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And then, get this. And then I'm so excited. We get the boat back, put it up, get back in the work truck, go to the place. And by now, that little tent that I saw that they were erecting in the yard is now a full-on circus tent. And they're like, yeah, we're having a party tonight. Y'all go get cleaned up. And so we come back, and Jerry Jeff Walker is playing in this little circus tent, a private party in the hill country. And I caught a 9 1/4 pound largemouth bass. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
In Texas. That's Texas, buddy.
Yeah, so that's... And I can only imagine that if you go down hunting there, that you would have a similar experience. What's the biggest tarpon you've caught?
Probably close to 100. Yeah.
It's cute.
It's cute. I tried to get one big one with you, but we think we missed it.
Yeah.
That's on fly, man. What are you talking about? Conventional, I've hooked some big ones.
We did miss it. I have caught some big ones myself, but the person who's caught the very biggest is, there was a fly shop out west called Kaufman Streamborn. Do you know Kaufman Streamborn?
I've heard the name.
Lance Kaufman, Randall Kaufman wrote a bunch of books on fly tying and bone fishing and all kinds of stuff. A real contributor to the industry, and he is phenomenal fisherman. His brother Lance used to come down and fish with me, and Lance was supposed to leave on this day, and we had a pretty good week. But I took him to this place west of Key West, and he was supposed to leave at 3. This is before 9/11. And so there was no issue with security at the airports or anything like that. So about 1 o'clock, I see a really nice tarpon. And I tell Lance where it is. He makes a beautiful cast to it. He hooks it and he brings it in. It's the biggest one I've ever had anyone, conventional or spin. This fish taped out at over 200 pounds. And he's like, I'm going to miss my flight. And so we let that fish go and took off the throttle to the floor the whole way. And I took him right around the front side of Key West and let him off on the road. And he jumped the thing, ran across the road, ran into the airport, and got on his plane.
That's how it's supposed to be when you catch fish
Well,
like that.
it would never happen now because you can't do that. I mean, you can't just run into the airport. I mean, it was bad. I mean, like he just ran in, just went. I mean, like there wasn't even security hardly. I mean, they're like, oh,
What's
make
your
sure you
biggest
don't
snook?
have any knives. The ones I caught with Ryan Nitz.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, those things. Well, I also went fishing with Matt Budd.
Yeah.
So
East
if you
Coast.
fish in that Jupiter area,
Yeah.
that's where the biggest snook that I've ever seen are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's some bigger ones somewhere else, but Matt Budd took me to the Jupiter Inlet, and I got to experience that with my son Hayden, and we caught a bunch of whoppers. I mean, real, as big as they get. I don't know how big they get, but as big as they get. Then, fishing in the backcountry with Ryan, those were really good. So, I mean, any of my biggest snook have come from either Ryan Nitz or Matt Budd, and all in that Jupiter area. That place is just unbelievable. Ooh, this is a good one. Tips on if I want to make fishing my career and possibly be a guide.
Oh.
What do you say? Because I'm going to look for this other question that's really designed for you.
Okay, so the question was...
Tips on if I want to make fishing my career and possibly be a guide.
I'll just tell you how I did. I moved into it slowly. I have a day job, and I have day jobs, and I moved into it slowly. And actually, the day job is actually what funded a lot of me growing my brand. I'm not the type of person that put all my eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's important with business, especially as being self-employed and entrepreneur. You need multiple lines of revenue, and just in case if something ever does dry up. I mean, what if you put all your eggs in one basket and all of a sudden you have horrible weather your entire season? Your entire money-making season's gone, no matter whether you're a tuna captain or you're a trout captain, guide, So that allowed me to kind of grow, and not have to stress about, the real life worries, feeding families and health insurance and things like that. So that helped. And then, of course, if you're going to do it, go 100%, be passionate. If your favorite thing in the world is targeting carp, then do your thing. That's your thing. If your favorite thing in the world is targeting sea trout, then make that your thing. I don't know. I think maybe the ways that you had become a professional guide are different than ways maybe people do nowadays. I think, but
there's some things that hold true, and that is you have to develop respect from the other guides,
mm-hmm.
and that usually comes down to hard work on the water. And so there's a fine line between being really good at social media and being really good at making sure your website looks super sweet and making sure that it the SEO is nice, and you're going to get when somebody Googles fishing in your area, your website's going to be the first to pop up. That's certainly a part of it, but the biggest part I think is just developing the respect from the other guides and anglers in the area, and that is through your etiquette on the water, your etiquette at the boat ramp, the way that you handle yourself, the way that you treat your customers. Just be professional and be professional with the other people, and never forget that your number one source of trips will be from other guides. So if you are somebody that, maybe might be a hothead at the ramp or something, or I don't know, just always remember, man, those people that were there before you, they know some stuff. You might have a good day today, but just be respectful. Always be respectful. So here's the one. It says, is the new wave of streamer-only junkies negatively affecting fly fishing?
No. Why would that affect fly fishing?
I don't know. Luke thinks it might. He's asking.
Is the new wave of streamer-only junkies negatively affecting fly fishing? I actually enjoy streamer fishing.
Well, yeah, but he's saying that there's some people now that are only streamer fishing.
Right, and that's fine. I mean, that's who's to say that one way is better? I mean, I think how fly fishing has evolved. I think that there's so many different ways of targeting fish with a fly rod, with glass, with bamboo, with graphite, with silk lines, with poly lines, with it's just, I think, I personally, I wish I could do more streamer fishing.
Yeah. I think you could ask the same question. I don't know. I don't think that it negatively affects fly fishing, but I think that it would be good for everyone to understand. Well, I mean, just understand it. Like does a wave of dry fly only anglers negatively affect fly fishing? It does if they're a bunch of elitist people that have a poor attitude and make it to where other people that are around them are like, well, if that's fly fishing, I don't want any part of that because those guys are a bunch of jackasses. So you could say the same thing about streamer guys or nymph guys or whatever. I think that, for to really truly enjoy fly fishing, you should be able to do it all.
Yeah.
Streamers, nymphs, all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. I have never seen it negatively affect fly fishing, but maybe it is on his river.
Maybe it
or
is.
Something. Maybe they're
share more with us there, Luke.
Yeah. What do you attribute your success to? Hard work. We're gonna have to rapid fire some of these. How do you manage everything? Family, work, hobbies, etc. That is actually the most difficult thing in my life, and what we've been talking about for an hour or so. Because it's really hard to manage all of that. It really is. It's hard to have goals in your life that you want to accomplish, and also have goals in your family that you want to accomplish. You want to spend as much time as you can possibly spend with your family, but you have to balance that with being able to work really hard. And so I think that it involves a lot of communication with your spouse and your family, your business partners, and everything to try to find that area where you're, the sweet spot, and you're not always going to find it. You're going to go a couple of weeks and you're going to be like, whoa, business is suffering a little bit, or worse. Wow, family's suffering a little bit. I'm going to have to back off a little bit, or after this trip, I'm going to have to be at home for a little bit, and make sure that everything's there. But there's not an answer to that I can say really quickly. I think that is a fluctuating thing that's going on all the time with that balance of family and work. What's your go-to weight for an all-around fly rod, inshore and schoolies offshore? So I'm sure he's talking about saltwater. I have a very easy answer to that. That's 10 weight for me. What's yours?
9 weight.
Yours is a 9?
I just like 9 weight. I like a 7 and a 9.
So I think 7. I think the 5 weight is the most versatile freshwater rod, and the 10 weight is the most versatile saltwater rod.
I agree.
But 9.
Well, some of them are heavy, some of them are light.
Right.
Whatever.
Right. Let's see here. As years pass, Peter DeSuri. Peter DeSuri is a guy that used to fish in Key West all the time, and then he became a rabid CrossFitter, and now he's traveling the world teaching. And I think he went to the games last year. Good job, Peter. As years pass, had your relationship with your prey changed? Do you chase, trophy, or moments?
Oh,
it's a deep question. We could do a whole podcast on that. I think I chase moments. I can really say that there have been some fish that are quite small and unimpressive that I consider to be more of a trophy than some real giants. So, and really, there are days where I have taken my kids fishing where we've caught nothing, and they are my favorite days that I've ever been on the water. So, definitely moments, and the relationship with the prey has definitely changed. I used to hear older people say this. He's like, I'm not as mad at him as I once was, right? I didn't know what that meant, but when you're a young man, you just can't stop. You catch 100, you want to catch 101.
101.
And there are definitely days. We did it on this last shoot. We went tarpon fishing, and we happened upon a great situation. Rich caught 6 on spin. I caught 6 on fly. And, I just looked at him and I said, you know what? There is an art, and there is something to be said for leaving them biting. Yeah. And they were rolling and popping all around us, and we just trolling motored out of there and started the engine and left. It's just what more do you need?
No,
and as a young man, I would have stayed there and just pulverized them into the ground. But not anymore. I finally figured out how I can leave them biting.
Leave them biting.
There is definitely it's a good feeling. Are you going to do a freshwater striper fly fishing show soon? I know your boy Graham has it dialed in. Graham definitely does have it dialed in, and
not just dialed in.
Yeah, it doesn't fit with the format of Saltwater Experience. Doing the show with Will was a real strange thing that just kind of happened, and it might have happened with Graham too. But we had that hurricane, and we were really having a hard time kind of fishing where we normally do, and we needed to get a show really fast, and that fit perfectly. And I don't know. I don't see us doing it, but we did do a Sweetwater show. Went and fished with Graham, and they had a very productive show. Will you be making a guest appearance on Into the Blue this season? Well, the season's not over yet. Maybe, but I'm always a guest appearance behind the camera on Into the Blue. One of my favorite things to do, because those guys teach me a lot. What connection knot do you use on permit leaders from class to tippet? So class meaning if you were trying to set a world record, that's your tippet that counts. So if you say you caught a fish on 12 pound, you could put a heavier shock tippet on the front of that. Now, I don't do that on permit leaders. I would possibly think about doing that if I was trying to fish like 2 pound or 4 pound. I would use a shock tippet because the IGFA says it's legal, and why not? You know, that's probably the place where you're going to get some abrasion. So might as well do that. But I don't typically use a shock tippet on my permit leaders. But if I were to do that, I would probably just use either a Slim Beauty, depending on the difference in the size of the line, or a 2-turn blood knot. Are bonita fish big? You don't watch a lot of movies, do you? Let's see. Oh, we're really close. What's your technique when you can't get dolphin behind the boat to eat? Chum heavy. You know, there are those dolphin. It happens with dolphin and it happens with cobia. And sometimes they get in there and they just don't eat. So, I don't know. Live bait, the freshest live bait you can possibly have, is often the solution, and certainly what the Into the Blue guys are reaching for immediately. If there's a fish behind the boat that won't eat, they're going for the freshest bait that they can't catch with their hand. It's definitely catching it with a net and using a smaller hook and lighter line. But that's what I would say also. So we really blew right through these questions, and there were some really good ones, man. And again, this all happens because of Instagram, my favorite social media. Oh, where's location X? Can't tell you.
I got one of those questions too. I figured we could answer that.
I can't answer it. I signed a non-disclosure agreement, and I won't break it. Can't do it. Plus, somebody might burn my boat if I did. I don't know. What's the single most important thing that you've learned fishing inshore that made each day more productive? Do you have an answer? That's a good one to close on.
You have to enjoy your time on the water no matter what you're doing.
That makes it more productive? That's what you say when you don't catch anything.
That's I mean, most people don't catch anything.
Oh. That's when you take a picture of the sunset?
Yeah. When you see guys posting pictures of like bridges and things, they didn't catch shit.
Yeah. Well, I've taken plenty of pictures of bridges.
So have I.
So I guess
being more productive, I don't know, plan better, have a game plan.
Well, yeah, but you have to learn some information before you can even get to the game plan.
Sure.
So I would say learning, well, in the Florida Keys, there's a tide difference between the ocean side and the backcountry. There's a tidal difference. So it might be low on the ocean at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that same low tide might not reach the backcountry or will not reach the backcountry for 4 hours later. So the tide in the backcountry is 4 hours later than the ocean side. So if it's low on the ocean at 8, it's going to be low in the backcountry at 12. Then each little place, even hundreds of yards apart, can be 30 minutes to an hour, either earlier or later than that place. So first of all, it's gotten a lot easier because there are published charts of where these tide stations are, and you can check it out. And even on the Lowrance GPS, you can search the nearest tide station and you can see where you are. But kind of memorizing like the difference between oceanside and where you are, and then how that works with where you are. So, for instance, if you're in Jewfish Basin in the Florida Keys, which is close to Key West, and then you travel east to the Content Keys, the tide's going to be about an hour later in the Content Keys than it was in Jewfish Basin. So you could run to the backcountry and try to catch the first of the incoming tide at Jewfish Basin. Of course, you hit the first of the incoming tide on the ocean side that morning, right? And then you run and you hit it in the backcountry. And then you stay there for 30 minutes and you say, okay, we're going to take off because it's not really that good right here. We're going to run for 30 minutes and we're going to hit the first of the incoming tide again. And so really knowing those tidal differences and being able to kind of forecast that definitely makes the day more productive, because you can kind of find the fish on different tides by moving around. But you do have to know your way around. Okay, so that's going to be it for today, I think. So, Will, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We were probably you were planning on telling me your life story, but we just answered questions. So
that's even better.
we'll do it again. So Will came here actually today because he just launched his own podcast, or he's recording some, and he asked me to be on it. So I was thrilled and honored to be on it. Tell them how they can find your podcast.
Well, it's not published just yet, but when it is published, it'll be Will Taylor's podcast. It'll be found on iTunes and all the other platforms. And as soon as it launches, I'll make an announcement on social media, and hopefully you guys will make an announcement over here, and we'll hopefully have some feedback on it.
Okay. And for the people that were on the Instagram Live and I cut off, I had to look at these other questions, so I'm really sorry if I cut you off. We'll do it again. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for all the questions, guys. I hope we answered them the way that was helpful to you. If you have any other questions or we didn't get to yours, you can hit me up at podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. Until next week, we'll see you.